Hello, my name is Dr. Maya Byfield. My business is The Phenomenal STEMist. I'm so excited to be here in Orange County because it's where I live. I live in Apopka, Florida. And I decided to make this business because I saw a need for underrepresented students to be successful in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, math. And the best way I can do that is just provide products for parents to prepare them, whether it's a book or online STEM camps or just video podcasting. My goal is to transform this community, especially those who are underrepresented. And the way to do that is to help parents understand their children's minds and basically develop them at different stages of their lives to be prepared for a successful STEM career. Thank you so much. That's why I'm here. You, Dr. David Josie. Hey, everybody. Come on in and join. This is Dr. David Josie Jr. He has a bachelor's from, I have to wear this right here. I gotta represent. Oh, see, we went to Oakwood College together. And he's a physician. He got his MD from the University of Medicine and Dentistry in New Jersey. Then he went to the University of Arkansas and got his residency in pediatrics. And he is a board certified physician working in Jackson, Mississippi. How did you get there? We'll talk about that a little later. We'll talk about what you do a little later. But my first question to you is, when did you fall in love with your discipline?
Well, that's a good question. I'd say probably from a young age. I think as far back as I could remember, I always wanted to be a pediatrician.
Wow.
I had a pediatrician that I worked for, who I used to see at home, that Dr. Bordick, and he was great. I loved the way he worked with my sister and I, and so I just always said, I want to be a pediatrician. So that's as far as I can remember.
David, I think every kid wants to be a pediatrician. I think that's like because I think it's our first professional experience with somebody that is a lot of the times very gentle. And but you're one of the few people who actually say, I want to be a pediatrician, and then actually become a pediatrician. And I just want to say how proud I am of this guy. I went to Oakwood with him, and he's just not your typical pre-med students. I'm just gonna be real. Like, we're from the Northeast. Look at him. Look at his office. Those are Jordans in the back of him.
That's a couple. I mean, that's a couple way to work. That's important. Where's from?
And what I love about David, what I love about him is that, David, I feel like you didn't have to not be you. You stayed you're still you, and you succeeded being Mr. David Josie. And don't get it twisted. I remember when I would study, I go into the library, David. I remember this about you. I remember going to the library and going into the back corners right there, and this dude was studying.
You had to do it. So it paid off.
It paid off, yeah. So what tools did you use to discipline yourself?
That's a good question. I think the one of the biggest things would be like just time management. That's one of the things that I take for granted, and so having to try and balance enough time for studying, enough time for to try and have some sort of semblance of a life, but really to get everything in, in the time, you have to do it. I think that was a big thing. Also trying to find an area, to study in, free from distractions.
Mm-hmm.
I get distracted easily, so
right.
that was a big part. And then I think just further on, study groups. That definitely helped as I got further along with in different classes and stuff. And then even tutors got a lot of help with some classes, microbiology, stuff like that. So I think those are some of the things that definitely helped.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason why you were in the cut is because you did not, because what I would do is I needed to walk around. So I would distract him, but I would go back to my seat, right? So the way I studied was I couldn't study for 3 hours straight. So I would sit, study for a half hour, then walk around the library and say, hey, and I would always see David, in the cut. And then I would go do my thing. So, okay, that's what you did. You went off into the corner so that you wouldn't get distracted. Oh.
There's a lot of distractions. Local university.
Okay, so you hid away in the corner to keep your focus. Because outside of the corner, you had fellowship distraction. That's what we call it.
And to keep that to a minimum at most times.
Very good. Okay, so keep yourself from distractions. Get into study groups, and if you need help, get tutoring. Don't be ashamed. Absolutely. Yeah, I was when I was in calculus, I was in tutoring, math tutoring. I just, that's what you have to do. Okay, so what were your challenges? What were your big challenges in school?
Well, I think, college, probably not too much,
Okay.
It's been really, just studying and, stuff like that. Med school, probably the biggest thing was the volume, I think the big thing is it's not the difficulty of the work, I think most of it is, when you can understand it, most things it's not, really complex stuff per se. It's just the amount of material that you're faced with. So, for instance, what we were doing the whole semester, biology of Oakwood, we're doing 1 or 2 weeks,
Mercy.
And so that was man, so that was really the biggest thing, was finding ways to memorize and, the things that you did before, didn't really work. So before, I could, cram in, study, a couple days before whenever for the exam, and it'll be fine. But, with that volume, there's no way to do that. So you have to find ways to, like I said, that's when studying in groups, really budgeting your time to figure that out. And then finding different ways to, remember things, different mnemonics and stuff like that. Some of them that still stick with you, but, all of those things. And now, the biggest thing is just you have to know where to find the information. You don't have to keep all of it on the top of your head. You can never do that. But as long as you can find where it is readily, that's
okay, so medical school was, wow. I'm gonna tell my students that what you're complaining about cellular respiration that I'm taking 3 weeks to cover. I take 3 weeks to cover cellular respiration, David, and they're freaking out. Well, let me rephrase that. It's 1 week for cellular respiration, 1 week for photosynthesis, 1 week for metabolism. So 3 weeks for the energy chapter, and they're freaking out about it. But in biochemistry in medical school, you're doing that in a week.
I thought I was good. I was I did biology, we had anatomy there, we had the lab, so I really felt like I was
prepared.
And I was like, man, this is serious. I was like, oh.
Wow. So med school is all about volume. I know a lot of, I didn't go to med school. I went to a med school. I did my PhD at Albert Einstein, and I saw that they would just crash after a test. And now I know why, because they just put a whole bunch of stuff in their head real quick, and then hope for the best. Okay, so the volume, that was the biggest challenge. All right, so what are your challenges now? First of all, tell us what you actually do for a living.
So I'm a pediatric pulmonologist. So work with kids' kids' lung disease. Mm-hmm. And so there's 4 of us here at the University of Mississippi. It's a university hospital.
Okay.
And so typically work with that. Again, pediatrics because we don't like working with adults, so that was great. But I'm also the assistant director of the Cystic Fibrosis Center. We're the only cystic fibrosis center in Mississippi.
Okay.
So we take care of all the patients, most of the babies in Mississippi there. And I also have a pulmonary sickle cell clinic.
Okay.
And so I run that. And so those are the main things.
Wow, David, first of all, how did you I'm assuming you got to Mississippi because you did your residency in Arkansas and they're bordering states. That's what I'm assuming. But is that what happened?
Oh, so after Oakwood, I went back to Jersey,
mm-hmm.
Grad school residency, I stayed there. But then, Oakwood gave me the good view of the South. And I was like,
yeah.
I like it out here. It's nice, it's warm. So it's it's laid back.
Laid back. Yeah.
So I think I want to look somewhere down there. So that's when I ended up in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what brought me to Mississippi was when I was looking for a job out of fellowship, a lot of programs kind of had a defined role. So, they wanted somebody who was a CF center coordinator. At that time, I was like, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Now, but that's okay. But they want somebody to be a program director, has specific niches that they want you to fill. And when I interviewed at Mississippi, my partner, he was the only one that was there, and he was really supportive, whatever you want to do, I'll help you to get whatever bone you want off the ground. And so it really gave me a chance to kind of find my passions in the world of pulmonology and kind of work with them. So.
Yeah, so your specialty is pulmonology, right? Because I know you got a little bit of experience in that. I guess you did but tell us a little bit about that.
What, pulmonology?
Yeah. What is a pediatric pulmonologist?
So, really the main things we specialize in disorder of the lungs. So sure. I see a lot of asthma patients,
okay.
Severe asthma. Certainly a lot of general pediatricians, a lot of other people see asthma, but severe asthma. A lot of kids that need respiratory help, like kids on ventilators, home ventilators, kids who have trachs. Again, some of the severe disease of the lungs. The biggest thing that we see, of course, is cystic fibrosis.
Cystic fibrosis, okay.
Big disease states we treat. Chronic lung disease, prematurity, have a lot of babies that we follow with that, a lot of babies that go home with oxygen. And then, again, I work with sickle cell.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I didn't realize is that, you always hear about it being affecting the blood and pain crises and stuff like that. But kids with sickle cell also have a lot of lung problems.
Okay, I'm thinking circulation issues, not lung problems. Okay.
Yeah, so it affects the lungs as well, damages the tissue and stuff of the lung, and so.
Wow. Yeah, because the way it has to move through there, the lungs lining is so thin.
I wanted to do something that obviously affects a lot of us, and so that's my way
of giving back. That's amazing. What are your? I'm going to ask you first what your challenges are as a physician in the pulmonology pediatrics field, or a physician, period.
Yeah, so one of the things, and one of the big challenges now is just, I guess, the way that medicine is going nowadays. When I say that, in terms of a lot of the managed care companies, insurances, stuff like that. So what you see is that you don't have as much autonomy over your decisions as you once did. Whereas you can still make decisions, but there's somebody who may or may not, be a doctor, maybe a business person telling you, the best way to
treat your, yeah.
Where it's not necessarily, it may be good financially, but may not be best for the patients. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. For example, a lot of our asthma medication that we use, it's determined by, for the patient we see who receive government assistance, Medicaid, etc. A lot of that is determined by whoever who gives them the best contract. So they have a list of preferred medications, and then they'll say, okay, this year, these are the ones that we prefer, so these are the ones you can use. But if the patient's been doing great on this, you tell them that, they're like, well, yeah, and you can still make the decision, but it makes it so difficult when you have the nurse on the phone for hours a day and it backs up everything. So you end up having to do that.
Right.
It may not necessarily be best for the patient. So that's one of the big things, that we're seeing now, and I don't know how that's going to change. Another big thing is, clinic violence stuff they never taught you about in school. Like how many patients need to see, during the day. I guess if you're a chiropractor, it doesn't matter, as much, but certainly in the university, you have a revenue value unit. So how many patients or how many people that you see determines the billing.
Right.
Stuff that, you wouldn't necessarily know about, but, so if patients don't come, that affects your no-show rate, that affects that. And so it's a lot of things that I guess more the
business side of medicine that you really did not think about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like when we were in college, we were learning science, and then we went to medical school, we were learning medicine.
Exactly. You want to help people. I just want to. You want to help them feel bad. Take the medication, be healthy.
Right.
All this other stuff that you didn't necessarily.
Yeah. Did you see yourself as like director, like you're associate professor, you're a director of? Did you see yourself doing this?
No. I mean, I when I finished, I really just wanted to work. I just wanted to see patients,
Yeah.
And that's it. But a lot of that, kind of, some of it is need, and some of it, I feel like a lot of things you don't know till you get there. Like if you had told me, when I was in, for example, when I was in fellowship, I worked with some said if I go to patients, I was like, yeah, they're okay, but I never saw myself, doing that. And when I came here and started working with the director here, and working with patients here, and I was like, oh, I don't like this.
Look, I like this.
Yeah, this is good. And, you build different relationships with different people.
I think that you are such a friendly person and such a down-to-earth type of person. I feel like maybe it just comes to you, and you just took the opportunity, and it worked. It worked. And I think that's so important, because you can be as smart as you want, you can know all the things you want. If you don't really know how to network with people, be friendly with people, and if you're not open, if you're pretty like narrow-minded, these kind of opportunities may miss you. So the fact that, I think the reason why you're doing all these things probably is just because you were open. Yeah. All right, last question. What's the favorite part of your career? What do you like the most about being a pediatrician?
Honestly, just working with the children.
Okay.
It's like, even if you're having a bad day and you're mad at everybody, you're like, I don't want to talk to anybody. You come in the room and you see the kids and they're cute, they're playing. Like, you can't be mad at the kids.
Right.
It's great. And the big thing. The other reason why I like peds is because a lot of times parents may not necessarily do things for themselves. So, the doctor tells you to take your meds. You may do it, you may not.
Right.
But most parents are willing to do that for their children. We still have some issues with that, but for the most part, parents want to do right by their children even more than they'll do, for themselves. So, that's a good part. And then like the relationships that, you build with family. I've been down here for 5 years. I'm in Mississippi, and I've been to graduations, I've been to patient funerals, unfortunately, engagements, and so you kind of build these relationships with the families. You see them, multiple times, maybe 4 times a year, more if they're sick or, have strong bonds on the family.
Wow, that's a good point, David. I really never thought about the bonds that you built. I think pediatricians, for the most part, really are the most the most commonly known doctors that build relationships with their patients that last long. Like, I remember my pediatrician, Dr. Gosley, till this day. He would have all of our pictures. When you go into his office, you just see kids' pictures everywhere. And that's a good point. Like, you build relationships with them. And I never would think that she would go to a funeral. That's a good point. I don't think the heart surgeon is going to the patient's funeral. You know what I'm saying? But I could see pediatricians doing that. And I definitely could see Dr. David Josie doing that. I could definitely see you doing that. Well, sir, I thought this was an amazing interview. I'm so grateful that you took the time to spend with me in your makeshift office /
This is official office right here.
the official office with the Jordans in the background. Classic Dr. David Josie Jr. I see. Only Sharon Stone is online. I'm sure everybody else will just watch. Everybody was excited when I've said it. When I put it on Facebook, you got the loves and the likes. This guy right here is just, he's a personality. He's always to be remembered. And I respect you so much, Dr. David Josie Jr.
I thank for everything that you do. So.
No doubt, no doubt. All right. Have a good night, David.
All right.
I am the phenomenal STEMist, and so is this dude right here, Dr. David Josie Jr. Sharon says, happy to see you both and proud of both of us. That's what Sharon wants to tell us. Appreciate it, Sharon. Thanks so much. All right. Good night, everybody. Hey guys, those of you who are joining me from my page, I'm with Dr. Danique Woolfolk. This is a special person. Went to Oakwood with her. She's actually a graduate from Oakwood College, now university. She had her degree in biology, minor in chemistry, and then she took some time off to raise a family, raise children. She has 2 children, married with 2 children, and they're college ages themselves. It's crazy. We're old. And she went on after raising her children. I think your youngest was in kindergarten. That's what you said, right? That you started medical school at Indiana University and transitioned over to a dermatology resident. You did your dermatological residence at Texas Tech, I guess, in Texas. I'm Lubbock, Texas. So this is a dermatologist. I always wanted to talk to a dermatologist about their path. And I said, you know what? I have so many special physicians in my line. That's the beauty of going to Oakwood and being a biology major, that there's lots of connections. So I said, okay, let me talk to Danique. So before we get into what I really want to talk about, which is the ailments of African Americans in dealing with our hair and our skin, what was your path to becoming a dermatologist?
Well, I did not start out with that as my goal. I'll be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a little background. A lot of people may not know. A lot of people that I went to Oakwood with. My dad is a dermatologist.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So he went to Loma Linda University School of Medicine. He's an Oakwood graduate. Went to Loma Linda. He did his residency out in California, and then he moved to Dallas area, where I was raised, and he's the first Black dermatologist in Dallas, Texas. So I knew that I wanted to do medicine, but I never really put a lot of emphasis on dermatology. I thought that I had dermatology, but went back, took the MCAT, had never taken it earlier, got accepted, and in Indiana University School of Medicine is where we ended up, more due to the fact that we were close to a family. But interestingly enough, when I was in medical school, I, number one, found out or rediscovered, I should say, the lack of diversity in dermatology. dermatology. And I think that was something that, my dad always tried to represent to us, but, sometimes
you don't listen to it.
You
You don't understand it.
Right?
Yeah.
But so I got some opportunities to shadow people who were not my family, not my dad, and just, enjoyed the diversity and, being able to do clinic, meaning where you're seeing patients, treating, you can do surgery, we do pathology. So, things that we biopsy or surgically remove, we diagnose underneath the microscope, and then we do cosmetics. And in dermatology, you can choose and kind of create your practice depending upon, your interests. So when I finished Indiana University School of Medicine, did my residency at Texas Tech. I decided during that time when I was going through training that I did want to specialize more in skin of color.
Okay.
And so my primary practice is primarily ethnic skin. So I would say probably 85% plus of my patients are of those darker skin complexion.
Wow. And I didn't know that. I didn't even know that. Okay, cool. What was your greatest challenge in school? So you were brilliant. I remember you in
I don't know about being brilliant.
Maybe I just had the false perception. I don't know. I just thought she was so smart. Okay.
Yeah, I think I work hard. And I think that's a good thing to and I'm glad you kind of bring that up, because a lot of times people are sometimes off-put about going into medicine because they're like, oh, I'm not naturally smart. I'm not born with this, this mind. I never thought that I was born with this mind. But I did feel like that was one thing that my parents instilled in me, particularly my mother. I mean, I was homeschooled for like my high school years, is that how our hard work can outperform smarts any day.
Any day.
And so it's just, basically believing that you can do it, putting forth the effort, getting help when you need to. I think anybody can do it, honestly.
I agree, but I tell my students all the time, biology is not for the smart, it's for the prepared.
That's right. That's a good way to put it. But to get back to your question as far as the greatest challenge, medical school and any professional school is on a different level than college. It's a big step to go from high school to college. Mm-hmm. It's a big step to go from college to medical school. I think my greatest challenge is that I had a big break from the time that I finished my undergraduate work till the time that I started medical school. So I wasn't a traditional student. A lot of times they will classify it as more of a non-traditional student. So I had a lot of time away from the books. So basically kind of getting back into that regimen of studying, but again, going back to that hard work, being organized. My youngest was in kindergarten. My oldest was in first grade. They went to bed at about 7 o'clock at nighttime, and I studied from 7 to 12 every night, and, thankfully they were young then. I couldn't get away with that, probably with them as teenagers, but the timing was right.
Yeah.
And so, we just had a strict schedule. And the other thing, I think I had a great support system. So, my husband, spent a lot of weekends. So, on Sundays when I was studying all day, he would take the kids and keep them busy and, take them to the park or wherever. And I didn't get an opportunity to study with a lot of my classmates just because of
you had a family.
At home.
Yeah.
But just, learning to adjust when there were challenges. And I tell everybody this, first test in medical school, gross anatomy, I failed. Mm-hmm. And, it wasn't like, oh, well, I can't do this anymore. Might as well pack up my bags and, keep moving. It's, well, let me get back up, figure out what I need to do, get in the professor's office, learn what I need to learn so I can pass the class.
Absolutely.
You know? And that's kind of the mindset that I took with pretty much everything.
Yeah, I was talking to another colleague, colleague who I brought to my institution to actually talk to people, and he openly says he failed micro. He failed his first micro tests, and he struggled through micro. It's so important for people to understand who's going through medical school. That is very important to study, but you don't have to necessarily feel like you have to ace everything. And in life comes failure. I was a couple of students, they were complaining about, oh my God, nothing worked. Like they did a lab and nothing worked. I said, and that's life. Like we're always messing up. I'm like, and that's life. You know, life comes with failure. But the fact that you decided that, in spite of you failing that first gross anatomy test, you dusted yourself off. That's right. I love that. I love that. So I remember David Josie, he said that, no, it was Damaris. She said that it's like sipping water through a fire hydrant with a straw.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. You know, until you've done it, it's hard to explain. It's just extremely hard to explain. And I think, you know, of course, the volume of the material is there, and I think anybody can learn to manage. And of course, you know, thousands of people a year learn to manage the volume of the material. I think part of a challenge, especially with African-American students, is learning to take the tests also.
Right.
Because they don't stop, okay? MCAT is just the beginning, okay? And then your multiple tests through medical school. It's
your boards.
It's your boards, you know, it's your certification boards after that, and then your recertification boards when you're done. So it's, you know, you're never going to get away from it. I think for me, you know, that was something also that I had to learn how to take the tests. And, you know, just one tip for me was that it was, if I could practice the topics, like there's so many resources now for questions on certain topics that you can find anywhere.
On the internet, yeah.
So on the internet. So if you can test yourself in multiple ways before somebody else tests you, you usually will master most of the material. Now that means you could either make your own tests, but there's so many resources now where you can buy, you know, question banks and things like that, you know, just doing them. And there's actually been a few studies that have been done where they, especially like for the steps, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, they found that the higher scores correlated with the number of practice questions that people took before they took those tests.
Right. Wow. So test taking, not just getting the volume, but mastering the test taking for students of color. You guys hear that? It's so important. But you're not going to get away from it. You're not going to get away from it. And you're not going to get away from the need to work hard and study hard. All right. So that was your challenge, but you made it. You're currently practicing. Right? You're in private practice. Awesome. My question to you is, there are not that many Black dermatologists. Like, well, I mean, there's 2 in your family, but that's like, shout out to keeping it in the family, but it's not common. So what do you think is the reason behind the lack of diversity in dermatology? Because it's an awesome profession. It's an awesome, first of all, it's one of the hardest, am I right? It's one of the hardest residencies to get in.
It is.
So shout out to Danique Wolflook. She says she's not a genius, but trust me on this one. All right. It's one of the hardest residencies to get in. And there's not much, and I feel like there's a lot of, you know, push to cosmetology for African Americans. What do you think is the reason why there's a lack of diversity?
So let me answer your first question. So I think the lack of diversity is due to lack of exposure, honestly. Okay. How many people, or, you know, maybe that you even know, go to dermatologists regularly that are African American? Not a lot, okay?
Right.
And that's due to one of many issues, okay? One, and studies have shown this multiple times, as far as in our community, we tend to go to doctors that look like us, and we tend to stay more consistent with treatment plans from doctors who look like us, okay? So, I have patients all the time who come to me and say, hey, I did have this condition long ago, and I went to a particular dermatologist, and I feel like they, one, cared, two, they didn't really look at it, two, they didn't really touch it, and I just figured I just wouldn't go back, okay? So, number one, people don't get exposed to it. Number two, it is very competitive to get into, and so, but I don't think that should deter anybody.
Right.
I think that there's opportunities and there's many routes, I think, of getting there for someone who wants to do it. The most important thing is to, shadow early, do research, express interest, especially when you're in medical school with your dermatology department, get letters of recommendation. If you don't get in the first time, sometimes you do a research year, and then, reapply. I think the American Academy of Dermatology, which is our national organization, does recognize that there is a need for more opportunities, I'll say, for lack of a better word. And there are mentoring opportunities within the field, especially for people who are college age or even in medical school, to be, matched with a dermatologist, if they are people of color, and they're wanting to be matched with someone that's currently practicing in the field to get a little bit more exposure. If you go to the American Academy of Dermatology website, they have some information about that.
Okay. All right. So why do you think? So basically, you're answering the second question. People want to do cosmetology because Black little girls have been going to cosmetologists, hairdressers, basically, since we can ever remember, right?
So cosmetology, so that's a good, so first, kind of this distinction, what's kind of the difference? Dermatology versus cosmetology. Dermatology is, of course, more the study and the treatment of skin disease. And then cosmetology is basically more beautification of the skin using cosmetics. Okay, that's where people do esthetician training, exactly what you said. The hairstylists, the barbers, all of those are going to fall under kind of that cosmetology field. They have their role. They have
absolutely.
But kind of if you think about history a little bit, as far as, and I can't quote years of when all this, but think of like Madam C.J. Walker.
Right.
She was the first one that started, this major business that helped women to be able to style their hair a little bit better, and such and such. And so now we have this multi-million-dollar industry of hair care products, that has kind of expanded. Well, then people say, well, what can we do at home to make our skin look better? They may not have had a specific skin disease or skin condition, but they wanted to improve their appearance. So now we have this multi-million-dollar skincare industry. Okay, and so all of these people are cosmetologists, are probably more in that realm as far as beautification. Now, is there some overlap a little bit? Absolutely. Okay, because healthy skin is definitely important to get the best appearance of your skin overall, but there is a difference, I would say, in general, as far as the skin disease versus the beautification.
Exactly. And so they have more access to the skin beautification rather than understanding the biology of the skin, even though a career in the biology of the skin will make so much more money than I mean, no insult to the cosmetologist. And no, I'm just playing. But seriously, and there's a misconception. Well, I don't believe it's a myth or anything. We say to each other that Black don't crack.
Yeah.
right? We say that. And so like, why do I need to go to a dermatologist?
Yeah.
Black don't crack. But the reality is there are some skin issues that we face, and
Yes.
especially even hair issues that we face. So my next question to you is, what are the greatest ailments in the Black community in regards to skin and hair?
Okay, so I'll break it down, skin versus hair. We'll start with skin first. So I would say probably, and there actually, interestingly, have been a number of studies where they have compared what are the most common complaints or diagnoses that are seen among people who present with skin of color, particularly African American, Hispanic, Asian skin versus Caucasians. And what they found is that with individuals who have ethnic skin, pigmentation, hyperpigmentation is probably going to be one of the number one concerns. Secondly, and these are all in the top 5, and I may not be telling them exactly in the order, but hyperpigmentation, acne, hair loss, eczema, let me see, I think I might have had what the reference, seborrheic dermatitis, I forgot about that. That's actually fairly common. Are probably the top ones. Whereas if you compare it to the top conditions that are seen in Caucasian skin, acne is going to be up there, pigmentation is going to be nowhere on the list.
Right.
Okay. Hair loss is going to be way, way, way lower on the list. Skin cancer is going to be number 2 or number 3.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Caucasian skin. And then you'll get other things like psoriasis and warts and things like that. In my practice, I would say it's very, well, again, I'll kind of give you a little, my patient population is, I would say, primarily female. It's going to be 60-70% female between the ages of 15 to 65. Again, I do go outside that range, but that's primarily my patient population. And in that patient population, acne, hyperpigmentation, hair loss, seborrheic dermatitis, keloids, those are going to be kind of in those top ones.
Right.
So for skin, for hair, and I'll just kind of drill down into that a little bit. For hair, a lot of times people don't know what they have coming in. They just know that either my hair's thinning, I have bald spots, or I just suddenly lost it along my edges and they just came out. And most of the time, sometimes it can be sudden, sometimes it can be gradual. A lot of time, by the time an individual comes to the office for hair loss, especially if it's more generalized thinning, they've already lost maybe 50% of their hair.
Wow.
If it's localized, like frontal traction alopecia, they've probably lost a significant amount for them to notice it. But again, there are some genetic things that I think that make us a little bit more prone to those conditions as opposed to lighter skin types. But yeah.
But I'm wondering, I'm not saying there's not genetic roles, but I feel like traction alopecia, what's your viewpoint? I saw a research paper talking about the way that we are caring for our hair is causing a lot of our traction alopecia. I remember I lost a lot of my hair about 4 years ago in the middle, and it was due to so my dermatologist, which was a Black female. Yeah, shout out to another one. But anyway, she did a biopsy, and she was like, yeah, there's some there's inflammatory cells. So there's different types of alopecia. So guys, for those of you know what alopecia means you're losing your hair, and your hair follicles are dying for some kind of reason. Sometimes it's genetic, right? Especially for males. It's just, it comes through your mother's line. And sometimes your white blood cells literally eat your follicles. It's an inflammation or some kind of inflammatory allergic response. And sometimes it's literally a physical damage to the area. And I literally just stopped perming my hair when I found out that, you know, it was happening. I stopped perming my hair, and like my hairdresser at the time was like, "Oh, it's in your genetics." I'm like, "No, because my mother was doing the same improper treatments to her hair, braiding, jerry curl, perming, tight braiding." And I said, "You know what? I'm not going to do it anymore." And I have a full head of hair. It all grew back. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't genetic, because as soon as I stopped my behavior, the hair came back. And I'm wondering if, you know, I wanted your opinion. I'm feeling that, you know, the weaving and the braiding and the really, really tight braiding and the pulling and the chemicals that we're putting in our hair may be causing alopecia that we wouldn't have if we didn't do those things. I saw they have all these videos of remaking people on TV, on Facebook, and this woman who has this massive bald spot, and then they weaved her hair and they're like, "Oh, it looks so nice." And I'm like, "Well, what caused the massive amounts of alopecia?" I don't know. What's your take on it?
Yeah. So yeah, it is a major issue. It's a major issue, especially in Black women. So I'm glad that you definitely, you know, define that, because a lot of times I have patients who come and say, "Oh, you know, I'm coming in, I have this hair loss, and my hairdresser said I might have alopecia, but I know I don't have alopecia. Do I have alopecia?" Alopecia is just a general medical term
for hair loss. That's what
medical term. So,
they think they have a disease, like they think.
Right. So,
which it is a disease.
Yeah, but you have to kind of drill down and say what's causing it, because there are many different types of alopecia. But if you have hair loss, you have alopecia.
Right.
So we generally divide alopecia into scarring and non-scarring alopecia.
Right.
Okay? So non-scarring is going to be like your male pattern hair loss, your female pattern hair loss. That's what you were kind of referring to as far as to your genetics. You can have general thinning. We call that telogen effluvium. That can be like stress-induced, medication-induced after surgery.
Right.
Sometimes after people have a
baby, the hair.
Okay, but that's non-scarring. It usually resolves. And then traction alopecia, interestingly enough, can be non-scarring. Okay, if it's early, yeah, it can be reversible. Okay, it's when it's late it crosses over to the other category of scarring alopecias. Okay, and so scarring alopecias are where there has been so much inflammation at that level of the hair follicle that it has caused that hair follicle to scar. And so if you've ever had a scar, if you've ever had a cut, does the hair regrow in that area where the scar was?
No.
Never regrows once it's scarred. Yeah. So, you know, that's one thing about traction alopecia is that if you can get it early, it can be reversible. Once it's been present for years, it's usually irreversible unless unless transplantation occurs. Right. The other very, very common form of scarring alopecia in African American women is CCCA. You might have heard of that, centrifugal cicatricial alopecia.
That's the one that like circles the crown, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, central, and you know, right here in the crown area. Centrifugal means that it usually expands. Cicatricial means scarring. Okay, and then the alopecia. That is probably even more common than traction. They're kind of neck and neck, but that's one where we're learning a little bit more about the causes of it. So you're asking, you know, traction alopecia versus CCCA, which I'll just kind of talk about those because they're the two most common cause of hair loss in African American women. Traction alopecia is strictly due to hairstyling practices. Okay, 100%. It is, traction alopecia is not a genetic thing. The study that you might have been referring to came out of, I think it was Johns Hopkins.
Yes, it was. Yep.
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago, I think, where they had done a study, and they basically looked at and kind of categorized high-risk hairstyles, medium-risk hairstyles, and low-risk hairstyles, okay? So your low-risk hairstyles are going to be natural, loose, nothing tying it back. Loose ponytails probably fall into that category as well. Moderate risk hairstyles are going to be natural hair that you either braid, do sew-in weaves, anything that's pulling
tension.
Exactly, on natural hair is still considered a moderate risk hairstyle. Does that mean that necessarily you should never do moderate risk hairstyles? No. Okay, but it means in moderation.
In moderation, absolutely.
Yeah. So the recommendations of that study was, don't leave in, braids longer than 2 to 3 months. I generally tend to lean more towards the 2 months. 3 months is a little long for me, but I'm just saying what that article said.
Yeah, I'm going to my braid lady in December, because it's good to rest the hair. You know what I'm saying?
Do larger diameter braids. So
right.
When you're doing a lot of the mini braids, that's excess hair and excess weight
on
the hair. And so the moderate risk are kind of that. One other thing was dread. Well, I don't like to call them dreads. I know sometimes people call them
locks.
Locks. Yes. So locks can be a moderate risk hairstyle also. Usually when they're shorter, they're not as dangerous, but as they get longer and heavier, that length and that weight of that hair pulls, and people get a lot of traction alopecia in that crown area. And then high risk hairstyles are going to be when you're doing all of what I just mentioned. You're doing braids, you're doing sew-ins, but you're doing it on a relaxed hair. Okay?
Right.
So relaxed hair is already in a very weakened state, and then you're putting tension on top of that. There's no way you can win with that. Okay. So, if you are going to be relaxed, then you need to do, try to do as low risk as you can, meaning keep your hair loose, keep things off of it. I probably would not routinely recommend to do braids or sew-ins if you have relaxed hair. If you have, if you have natural hair. And also with relaxed hair, you need to keep heat off of it. Okay.
Keep what off? Keep what?
Heat.
Right. But the thing is, what they do is they relax your hair, and on top of that, they flat blow dry it, and then they flat iron it. And some of us are doing that every 6 weeks.
Do that every week.
No. The perming. Yes. And with me, man, if my friends remember, they must have died and gone to heaven. I don't believe in dying and going to heaven, but you get my point. That when they saw that I went natural, because I was very much relaxed, and I would every week flat iron, curling iron my hair. Yeah, I would put heat on my hair, plus relaxer, plus braids. Yeah, I know why. And this awareness is what can stop people early from getting, the traction alopecia turning into scarring. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why that's important. That's where the hairstyles really, really come into play as far as, and again, a lot of times people think just kind of frontal hairline, but traction can occur anywhere, throughout the scalp. Exactly what you said. The crown area, it can be, the occipital scalp, which is towards the back. And then the other thing is with our children also, not styling their hair, pulling their hair too tight. I get it all the time where parents will say, oh, my daughter's hair is not too tight. If you see little bumps on the scalp, little papules around the hair follicles, even if the child is not complaining, it's too tight.
It's too tight.
It's too tight. And studies have shown that recurrent tight hairstyles can affect your hair up to 10 years after you stop it.
Wow.
So sometimes people say, oh, I don't do that anymore. I did it when I was a teenager, but now I have all this hair loss. Well, that's because you still did it.
Yeah.
It was just a while back.
Yeah. Like even, you know, the curl pattern, like my hair was growing straight for a while because I feel like it was just the way over time. You know, many of us, including myself, had our hair straightened from I was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 years old to what, 30, maybe 36.
Mm-hmm.
I have been doing this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's not just me. And the knowledge of this is so crucial. But, you know, I didn't get this information until I got a biopsy from my dermatologist.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also very important because, you know, you can try to, you know, treat things at home, but it is also important to get a correct diagnosis.
Right.
Because a lot of times people think, oh, it may be this, it may be that. Sometimes we're surprised, you know, when we biopsy. You know, kind of going back to or crossing over and talking about CCCA, because we were talking about that was one of the primary causes of scarring alopecia in African American women. That's when we first, or the person who first coined the name for it, they called it hot comb alopecia. So they said, oh, it's because Black women are using a hot comb with oil and it's running down and burning the hair follicles and scarring it that way. And then they
but
said,
it wasn't that?
No. Yeah. And then they said, well, it's due to, maybe other hairstyling practices, maybe relaxers. We just didn't know. But interestingly enough, this year, there was a study done in the New England Journal of Medicine. You can actually look it up. There was a gene that was identified for CCCA. And they found that they feel like it does pass down in an autosomal dominant pattern. And so that's where they're actually finding that the hairstyles may not play as much of a role in the inheritance of CCCA as they do with traction alopecia.
Okay.
But again, the pattern of that is a little bit different, as we described previously. African Americans in general, some, I won't say everybody, but there are some that are thought to have a tendency towards fibrosis. So we get keloids.
For keloids, yeah. So fibrosis, guys, is like when you get a cut, your skin has cells, and you heal itself. If it cells will grow over. But if you get too deep of a cut, sometimes, your face and your skin has this fiber called collagen. That's what makes our skin so tight and nice. And when we cut ourselves, sometimes, especially in African Americans, the fiber grows too much. And so we get this big scar. We call it a keloid, but it's just because it's excessive. Too much of that collagen fiber and other fibers are growing rather than just the cells reproducing and healing itself. And yeah. So because of that, that's what they're starting to see genetically in our scalp.
Right. So they're thinking that with CCCA, it may fall under a category of a condition where people who have this tendency pro-fibrosis, okay? So other examples are like fibroid tumors.
Fibroids, we have fibroids.
A lot of African American women have fibroid tumors, and they did a study, I think a couple of years ago, where they found that there was actually a correlation. People who had CCCA tended to have fibroid tumors, uterine fibroids, okay, myeloma. So, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done as far as CCCA and kind of understanding a little bit better, why that particular form of scarring alopecia is so rampant in our communities. But we need the research dollars, and we need the researchers.
Yeah. So that's another field that people can go into, just studying it biologically. Yeah. All right. So last question. What should we do better for our skin and hair?
What should we do better for our skin and hair? Well, I think going back to the hair, we kind of touched on it a little bit. Avoid heat as much as possible, direct heat. So blow dryers, flat irons, very, very hard on the hair, weaken the hair. shaft. Indirect heat is not as bad, so that's, roller sets, kind of sitting under a hot dryer.
That takes so much work. That's so much work. I can't remember the last time I put heat on my hair. Probably 4 or 5 years ago. It's a fun.
But it's a lot more. It's a lot safer.
Yeah.
If you choose to straighten.
Mm-hmm.
And then, definitely giving your hair a break from extensions and trying to avoid tight hairstyles. I think we touched on that as far as hair. As far as skin in general, I would say probably, again, in my practice, most common thing people worry about a lot is acne. And so, acne in women can be, especially adult women, can be somewhat multifactorial. There can definitely be a hormonal component to it. If there is a hormonal component to it, nothing you do particularly is going to help other than probably getting on some medication to help that. But diet-wise, staying away from dairy, staying away from sugar, staying away from high-carb diet. Those are the 3 things that we've kind of noticed that it can contribute to acne. Making sure that you're using a gentle cleanser on a daily basis. Avoid scrubs. I'm not a big proponent of exfoliators.
Really?
Just kind of imagine if you kind of
scraped your face.
Yeah, scratch kind of the surface of something over and over again. You're going to create a low level of inflammation. And anytime you have inflammation in skin of color, it can lead to pigmentation. So I'm not saying that you should never do it. I just don't know that you need to do it on a daily basis.
Okay.
Moisturizers, of course, are very important. Sunscreen is important.
Even for black folk. Even for black folk, guys, put some sunscreen.
Not so much from a skin cancer prevention standpoint, but it's mainly more for issues of pigmentation, is what I usually tell my patients. So if you have hyperpigmentation, you're trying to get it better, and you're not wearing sunscreen,
it ain't gonna work.
You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. So hyperpigmentation is like when you have more darkness on one side than the other and stuff like that.
So hyperpigmentation can be the result of inflammation. So say for easiest example, you get a bug bite.
A pimple or or a pimple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it resolves,
you see that dark spot there.
Leaves a dark spot. That's called post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. Yeah. Extremely common in our skin.
Yep.
So we definitely have treatments for it, but sun protection is important to in helping that too.
Interesting.
And there's multiple other things, but I generally tell my patients, if you have a good cleanser, good moisturizer, good sunscreen, those are the 3 main things. Retinols, which are going to be your derivatives of vitamin A, retin-A, that's more the prescription form of it. That helps does help with exfoliation, skin tone turnover. It's anti-aging, anti-wrinkles. I think that should be part of everyone's regimen. It's usually used at nighttime. There are some over-the-counter forms of it, but you can also get prescription forms of it also.
Cool. I'm so happy I was able to talk to you. It's been a while coming, but it was great. A great interview. It's so good to see a Black female dermatologist. You can be a mentor in multiple ways. I know one of the people I know who watches Phenomenal STEMist is excited because their daughter wants to be a dermatologist. So she said, I'm definitely going to watch, and she's going to have her kid watch. So I really appreciate you coming on. It's always good to have what I call end games, because there's so many people who want to be something. They want to be an MD, they want to be a nurse, but unfortunately they don't see people that look like them. And when things get hard, this is what happens. When things get real hard, if they don't see someone who's accomplished the goal, they'll feel like, well, maybe this is not for people like me. Yeah. So for the fact that, you're out here and we're seeing Dr. Danique Woolfolk as a dermatologist, private practicing dermatologist, I'm so proud of you. I am the Phenomenal STEMist, and so is this way, the other way, I'm a little backwards here. I'm the Phenomenal STEMist. And so is she. Thank you so much, Danique, for being on with me.
This was fun.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Welcome to Phenomenal STEMist. Thank you guys for joining. I have with me Dr. Daniel St. Ali. He is a proud product of Oakwood College, now University. Shout out to Oakwood. Yeah. He received his bachelor's in biochemistry. And then he went on to Loma Linda University Medical School and received his MD. And he is now a practicing physician in rehab and pain management. Thank you so much for coming and joining with me, Daniel.
Well, thank you, Maya, for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity for young students who want to be doctors. You are a role model to them. And so I really appreciate you for taking the time to come out and do this for me. So my first question to you is, when did you fall in love with your discipline?
As in medicine or my field?
Both, or whatever you feel, your field, and then medicine in general. Like,
yeah, I will basically kind of bring you how I got to medicine.
Sure.
So basically, at least I feel my story is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was born, or at least when my mom became pregnant, she was actually in medical school, and I was basically not a planned baby, so to speak. So my parents had me, and I guess as a result of me, my mom never finished her career in medical school and decided to take care of me.
Wow.
Not that I felt any pressure of being a doctor, but I guess things just fit that way. So growing up, I always liked science. I even scared my mom one day. I had like a little bag of ants, and I used to put it under my pillow, knowing at the time that that was not the right thing to do. But I used to dissect insects, and growing up, I remember my mom buying me a microscope as well as a set, like a kit set with like a skeleton. And so over the years, I guess I developed a liking for anything that was health related. I would read the health magazines. And then I grew up in a small island called Martinique, and I guess I was in love with Oakwood. I'd known about Oakwood, and that's kind of how I went to Oakwood. And my goal again was to still become a doctor.
Wow. And
I guess things led into that way until I made it to Loma Linda. So I've kind of always knew, besides being a firefighter or fisherman, or like when you're a kid, you kind of have those fascinations. In a way, I always had the sense, okay, I wanted to be a doctor, and in that sense, things worked out.
Yeah.
I can't say that the road was easy, but that's kind of quote unquote the love story. But each love story have their complications.
Right.
So I made it to that destination, but it was not without any trials and tribulations.
Absolutely. So it was like your destiny. It was like it feels like it's like what you were meant to be,
Yeah, it feels that way. I mean, it's like you have this goal, this direction, but sometimes the road is tortuous. So even though I could see where I wanted to go, but I cannot, it would be injustice to say it was a straight shot.
That's right.
But in the journey, you have to learn to adjust and work it out.
Yeah.
So talking about love, so when I was in medical school, entering medical school, in my mind, I knew I was going to become a surgeon. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't know exactly what type of surgery I wanted to do, but I felt like it was in my DNA, in my genes. And during my third year of medical school, where you do your clinical rotation and you kind of get a feel for what's out there, and also we start thinking, okay, what am I going to specialize in? I did a rotation in urology, and I literally fell in love with it. So I was really enthusiastic about all the books, and in my mind, I'm going to become a urologist.
Mm.
And that didn't quite pan out that way. I went through the process, I interviewed about 9, 10 places, and based on the statistics, if you have but so many interviews, typically you're supposed to match.
Right.
The system where you pick your residency and so forth. But match did come, that didn't happen. So that was
heartbreaking.
Exactly. So, I was in love with quote unquote this field, and I didn't receive any love back.
No, that's a real story, Daniel. Because you hear a lot of stories from medical students. They're like shouting hooray that they matched. It would feel like that's the falsity of social media. It feels like everybody who wants to be whatever they want to be in residency. So just to let you know, guys, after you go to medical school, you have to get into a residency program where you match residencies, specific specialties with medical students. And a lot of the times everybody's saying, yip, hip, hip, hooray, I matched. You never hear the story about, hey, I didn't match. And I'm sure there's more stories about I didn't match than hip, hip, hooray. Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember even when I graduated from medical school, it was a very beautiful day, and you're getting all these congratulations and the balloon and the pictures. But, nobody really, it's going to be hard, but nobody really prepares you for what residency is. And I guess that's kind of life as well. So I guess your first step, kind of prepares you a little bit for the next step, but sometimes you have no clue. You have no clue what's coming your way.
Have no clue. You just have the dream. You just have the goal.
Exactly. So, and sometimes, people don't even understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
People have this, you're a doctor and you have this, and you're walking on board, but it's not the reality. It's not. It's not. So I kind of, when I talk to people, I kind of like to at least be realistic and not discourage, but be realistic. At least, okay, this is what could happen. Right. My story is not the story. I don't represent all the doctors. I can only relate my story.
Right.
But I think it's a perspective for other people to say, okay, this is someone experienced, and take it with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. It's real. And we have to come out of the shadows and stop having like this fantasy, because unfortunately every kid wants to be a doctor because it's a fantasy a lot of the times that, it's like this pristine career. Everybody wants to do it. It's heaven, and I really appreciate that reality that you just brought to us. So before we get into your path as a physician, what tools did you use to discipline yourself? This could be whether you were in college or medical school. What were some tools that you used to discipline yourself?
I don't know. I thought of being, I was talking to my mom recently, and she told me that ever since I was little, I was pretty disciplined. So I don't know if it was something I was born with, or I don't know if it was something that was ingrained into me, or maybe a combination of both. But I would say, discipline is key, So smarts comes for a little bit for a portion of it, but if you have discipline, you could do whatever. You could be smart and rely on your smarts, but at some point in time, you have to put in the work. Yeah. Yeah. So, because sometimes some people, okay, well, I'm smart, and they could get by without studying or just like reading through stuff like a couple hours before. That might work for college. That may not work for medical school, or that may not even work for life. Right. So at some point, you have to put in the work. Yeah.
So I think discipline counts for a lot. Discipline, being consistent. So if you do chip at it a little bit at a time,
Okay.
So it's so a little bit at a time, and then you get a routine and you become consistent. So I think for me, I'm not gonna consider myself as a super duper smart person, but I'm a hard worker and I'm quite disciplined and I'm a routine person. So when I see patients now, I try in my mind to form systems. I even tell one of my friends, you have to have a system, and sometimes you have to go away from your system. But if you do things kind of routine, that's how you won't miss anything.
And little pieces at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you kind of have, and I think that doesn't even apply to medicine. That applies to life.
Yeah.
Just like driving. You have to put the car on.
Step one. It's so key. Step one, put the key in the ignition or press the start button. Step two, this. Step three, this. Really, a lot of the times it's just learning, studying. Everything happens with steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once you've done that step, then you could be a little fancy and add a little bell and whistle.
Right.
If you don't have the pole, you can jump to the bells and whistle.
Right.
So for me, that's been my experience. So I think, the key is being disciplined and being humble and working at it one step at a time.
I like it. So develop a routine, develop a system, one step at a time, work at that system and just keep doing it, chugging along at it, and you will see the success of whatever you had to do. That's so like, I love this. Like I have this time management schedule, like my whole life from when I was at Oakwood, I would literally have 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. I'm doing this. 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. I'm doing this. Like literally, I had to plug in my system. So every day, every hour of the day, I knew where I was supposed to be when I was supposed to be there. And that has nothing to do with necessarily smarts, like you said. That just has to do with discipline.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me show you mine. Mine is not as fancy. This is my little to-do list for today. Right?
Right.
And you're right there. Maya 7 p.m.
Right. Awesome.
The difference, mine is not as fancy as yours.
Right. I'll send you a file. Anybody want a file of this, time management schedule? Let me know. Just send me an email. Yeah, and I'll send a PDF file because that's what it's all about. Because a lot of us forget, we don't remember everything we're supposed to be doing at what time, when we're supposed to be doing it. So keep yourself in a system and locked in. It works definitely for discipline. That's a very important tool. And because, like you said, discipline is so key in being successful in STEM and to be in medical school, then you're going to have to use these kind of tools. So thank you for that. What were your challenges? What were some challenges in school? Whether it be medical school or college.
At college, I did pretty okay. One of the challenges. So when I applied to medical school, to apply to medical school, you have to get the MCAT. So English was not my first language, it was actually French. So I did okay on the science part, but the English portion, that was not a good, my score was not rich. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And at one point, I literally got into medical school I feel like the last minute. Everybody was asking, okay, what you gonna do next? And I didn't know. And I was thinking of maybe doing like I think they call it a pushback with Ohio State. So that was one of my options. And it was almost getting depressing.
I know.
I cannot say in college I had any major like scholastic difficulties. And then it's like, okay, well, my score is not that great, and people think that, well, I'm gonna be qualified. and it's almost like I was hitting a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an adjustment. And my point is, in life, I mean, even though you will make it to a destination, the one that God has destined for you, there's gonna be some adjustments to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our reaction to those adjustments
matter.
That's what's key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So another challenge was also, so now fast forward to getting into medical school, I did fairly okay there, and then now come match time, and I didn't match. So I was in love with urology. So that's when I got into that field, I rotated through. I'm like, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. I was telling everybody, get down there, the next urologist. So
yeah,
that was pretty much it. So it was in my mind. So that's what I was pretty much going forward to. And then when came match time, that didn't happen either. So being disciplined and hardworking, I'm like, okay, I didn't get it the first time, but hey, maybe I'll get it the second time. So I got into a year of general surgery at Loma Linda, apply a second time, and guess what? Same answer, didn't get it. Then I was like, okay, well, maybe you just need to work a little harder. So I went to Emory and I did a year of research and got published, and then I did another 2 years of non-affiliated or non-accredited residency program. And, I was actually seeing urology patients. I was basically rubbing shoulders with
urologists.
Urology residents.
Mm-hmm.
And that still didn't happen. So that was, at least for me, a very hard pill to swallow, because I was like, hey, I'm doing the work, I'm doing this, but that was not, I guess, where I was supposed to go. So I guess the lesson I learned is being flexible.
Right.
Sometimes, you may put in all the work, you put your best efforts. I feel like that time, I did my best to enter into that house called urology. I tried the front door, the back door, the roof. I think, holes in the ground.
You would try to get in, man. And you were working hard, and no matter what you did.
That didn't happen.
Yeah.
At one point, you have to, I was doing a talk earlier today, and basically the quote was like, don't waste time hitting your head on a wall thinking that it's going to become a door. So you have to be wise at one point. Okay, well, once you hit your head so many times, okay, well, maybe I should consider something else.
Right.
Even though that might not be what you want, but sometimes you got to make those tough decisions.
Yeah. I love that story because, like I said before, social media is such one of the biggest lies, because we only a lot of the times put our best successes on there. So usually whenever I hear matching, it's somebody matched. Like, so it would look as if everybody who decides to be whatever they want to be in specialty, they get the match. And like yourself, you worked really hard. You disciplined yourself to the max and did all the good things you thought it would take to become a specialized urologist. And you had to be flexible to say, listen, this may not be the path that God has for me. I've tried my best. I've done my best. And if you do your best and it doesn't work out, then it doesn't mean that you're a failure, because you did your best. And it just didn't work out the way you had planned. So just to be flexible to see, listen, it's not the end of the world, because, a lot of people would have felt that it's the end of the world.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we all need a job, we all need a profession, but that doesn't define us.
That's right.
We're more than a job,
Mm-hmm.
So we can't let those situations, even though as sad or depressing that it may be, but we have to get back up again and say, okay, well, if society don't accept me in this position, well, I'm more than that.
That's right.
So we can't let that define us. I know it's easy, we're human and
Mm-hmm.
we're subject to deceptions, but we can't let a disappointment define our entire story.
That's right. I love that. It's our job, it's our career, it's our calling, and we don't even know our calling. So if it doesn't work out the way we plan, trust God, because it is our relationship with God that defines us.
Exactly.
That's what matters. I love that. All right, so tell me what you do now, and tell me before you tell me the good things about it, tell me some challenges. So what do you do now?
So right now, a year ago, just about a year ago, I decided to start my own practice. So I'm in that transition. So I do pain management. So I decided that I wanted to, quote unquote, be my own boss. So I'm in that transition. So what does that mean? So I do some work for other people, and I also work for myself. So my end goal, hopefully, is to fully work for myself and fully work in my clinic. So that in itself has been a learning experience. So for your listeners out there, so when you go to medical school and residency, guess what you're going to learn? You're going to learn medicine. How to take care of patients. But nobody tells you the back end side. So, the health industry is such a big industry. So the part with the doctors and the nurses and taking vitals and taking prescription, that's one aspect of it. But the back part or the background that nobody sees is the insurance company and the denials and all the bureaucracy that's in the background. And sometimes, you may see a patient, and sometimes insurance will find any type of way to get you paid, to deny your payment. So this is what I'm learning right now. So I'm learning kind of like the business of healthcare. And sometimes you have to make that, so sometimes business and clinical don't really marry together. So sometimes, the best decision clinically might not be the best decision business-wise, and you have to make that decision. And that's kind of why I decided to work for myself. So I feel like sometimes I was in positions where the people leading the company were making business decisions, but I was the one in front of the patient with that clinical portion, and there was sometimes they were not married together.
Right.
But that's the part of medicine that nobody talks about too. The ethical part.
The ethical part, yeah.
So there's, sometimes the best answer from a business stand of view, or there's the best answer from a clinical point of view, and then there's sometimes the overall best answer.
Right. Right. And so you're yeah, go ahead.
And then also conflict of interest. So you have to kind of put all of those into consideration, because at the end of the day, I mean, when we go into medicine, yes, we want to make a living, but we're here to do the right thing and serve people.
Right.
The people are entrusting us with their health. So that's a huge responsibility. So with a huge responsibility, there's a lot that comes with it, So
right.
much given, much is required.
Yeah. So your challenges are understanding and creating the proper boundaries for business and medicine, because sometimes business wants to overpower what's best for the patients, and you're like, no, we can't. And it takes a strong backbone.
Right.
It takes an ethical backbone, especially when it comes to rehab and pain management. Right. It takes a very strong backbone to manage that. Okay. So what are your favorite? What is the favorite part of your career? What do you like the most? So you didn't do urology. You end up doing rehab medicine and pain management. So what do you like the most about it?
So right now I do more pain management than rehab.
Okay.
I do like rehab. So rehab is more, patients who had a stroke or a life-changing event, at least the inpatient part of rehab. And what our claim to fame is that we don't add years to life, but we add life to years. So basically, it's more of a quality of life. So somebody who had a stroke, and helping them. Hopefully, the goal is to help them get back to where they were. But if that doesn't happen, how can we help them transition back to as normal as that
as they can? Yeah.
So I've kind of not done too much of that lately. And then the other portion of my specialty is pain management. So basically dealing with pain. So there's two aspects of it. So there's the medical part where we prescribe medication, including opioids, and I'm sure you've heard about the
Right.
That's a whole different topic. And then there's also the interventional pain management, which consists of injections. So people with neck pain, back pain, these are like some of the most common diagnoses that I treat. And the injection consists of basically numbing medication and steroids. So that's basically, I see myself, the step before surgery, and the goal is to help them avoid surgery if necessary.
Right.
So I love that aspect. So I didn't become a urologist, but I still get to use my hands. So usually surgeons who say they are doers, they like to use their hands. So internal medicine doctors are thinkers, but surgeons are doers. So I like to use my hands. So I still get to use my hand by doing injections. And the thing with doers is that we kind of get that quote unquote instant gratification, because if the appointment's been fixed, you get the feedback right away.
Right away.
As opposed to something like blood pressure, which is chronic and lifestyle. And you will make change in people's lives, but sometimes that end result is not, you don't get that gratification right away. So
you see people like, I'll never forget it. I had an allergic reaction to, I don't know, something. And it was a sulfur drug medication. I didn't know I was allergic to sulfur drugs, antibiotics. And I just kind of it was all red around me, hives. I had a fever. So my mom was like, yeah, I think you need to go to Centricare. So we went, and the doctor just gave me a steroid shot right there in the behind. And it just, went away immediately. It was the most fascinating thing I ever seen. Like literally within 5 minutes, I had clear skin.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you see stuff like that all the time.
Well,
not as like that drastic, but yeah.
I've seen some patients, basically I've seen patients very apprehensive, and needle is not something that we're supposed to like. So
right.
People, they're uncomfortable, and I feel like, oh yeah, my pain is much better. So to me, I feel like I've done something. Then the question is, okay, how long is your injection gonna last? Which is another something as well.
Right. I mean, so that there's a history, and there's like a delicate balance that you have to manage as a physician in pain management with opioid addiction, right? Thanks. Like, it's funny. You're actually like my last interview for Phenomenal STEMist. So I thank you for being the special last interview. Next month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm actually going to talk about trauma, the neurobiology of trauma. But mental health is a really big issue, and one of the biggest issues right now is opioid addiction. So like, how do you manage, when people like, I need this, versus when you really know that they need an injection or something like that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think along that journey I've changed as well, because at the end of the day, these patients, they're sick. I mean, some of them are addicted, but at the end they're sick, and I've learned to reach them where they are. So some of them are willfully addicted, and some of them are indirectly addicted. So what do I mean by that? I mean, opioid, if you take it long enough, your body will become dependent on it. And then, so let's say you're taking 5 milligrams, then 5 milligrams is not going to be as effective after a certain amount of time. So naturally, that's how the body works. There's no way around that. So what I've done opioid rotations, basically. So I kind of use this comparison. We know we're supposed to eat fruits or vegetables. So instead of eating grapes every day for years, then we do grapes for maybe a week, then we change it to apples, then we change it to another fruit. So within the opioids family, so I kind of do that. And then beside opioids, there's other medication that we can give as well. So opioids is not the end all by,
be all. It's like a story. Everybody talks about it, but that's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's part of the weapons that we have to fight pain. But some patient, the only thing that works is morphine, or the only thing that works is Norco or Vicodin. But there's more to that than pain management. So some of it is educating and so forth. And sometimes if I can manage a patient, I respectfully tell them, maybe you should seek another opinion. Because, I don't want, the healthcare is a dialogue. A physician, it's a dialogue, it's a relationship with the patient. But if they feel like I'm standing in their way, I don't want them to feel that I'm impairing the treatment they should get.
Right.
I tell them what I think, in my opinion. But I usually tell them, it's just like Walmart. If you don't like Walmart, there's Target.
There's Target.
I make joke of it, but at least they're not. I don't want them to feel like they're stuck with me.
Right.
There's also the mental aspect of health. So if you feel like the doctor is not serving you right, you shouldn't be there. If you don't trust your doctor, you probably should look for somebody else.
Right.
So that's kind of my philosophy.
That's your philosophy. That's your mentality. That's what helps you maintain your standard.
Exactly.
That's what helps you
maintain. It's a challenge because it's sometimes having a good discussion with somebody who's addicted is a challenge. Sometimes the conversation is not always rational. So you're trying to point them into a direction, and it's and I tell them, it's easy for me to write you a script, but is it the right thing? And so basically it's like a target pull, and there's wear and tear also on me.
On you.
At least, trying to do the right thing.
Right.
Right. So it could be a challenge, so maybe at the end of the day, I might need some mental health.
right. Speaking of which, I care so much of my physician friends, Damaris and Danique, Damaris Olagundoye and Danique Blackburn. They're on watching right now, and I care so. I went to school with Daniel. You were a freshman when I was a senior, and I just remember you. You would just be like, "Hi, Maya," just this little squiggly kid that has green eyes. I don't know. You just felt like you just had the biggest grin and dreams in the world. Like you, just innocent. That's what I remember all the time. And it's just amazing to see you guys flourish. Damaris being an OBGYN. Danique, I wasn't able to get you. I've been asking you, like, you're ignoring me. She's a dermatologist, and you in a physician in pain management. It's just amazing to grow up with you guys and see your accomplishment. But it's so important what you said about your mental health. So many physicians are committing suicide. The stress, and like you said, I love what you said. Being able to handle disappointment, because a lot of the times we've grown up doing well all the time, getting the greatest grades, succeeding all the way, and some of us even we get into the residency that we want. Everything seems to go our way, and then now we're dealing with patients and dealing with the stresses of residency and the stresses of taking care of patients, and it can be overwhelming, and sometimes you can feel like failure, even when you see people coming to you for addiction and they won't listen to you, or people who are dying on the surgery table, or people who are miscarrying. That can be intense on your psyche. So I love how you said being able to manage disappointment, meaning that your success or your failure doesn't define you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's life at the end of the day.
That's life.
Yeah,
that's life. And so physicians, I think physicians, those who are excellent in STEM, whether you're a science, technology, engineer, mathematician, physician, we need to take care of our mental health too. We need to make sure that we're staying at the, like you said, humble level, and realizing our humanity. We are humans. Even when we're excellent, even though we're phenomenal, we are still human. We are allowed to make mistakes. We are allowed failure. With all the excellence, we're allowed failure. Yeah.
And even among physicians, there's a high rate of burnout.
Burnout.
You know, it's kind of ironic. I mean, we're supposed to bring health to people, and we tell people, well, you need to sleep right, and be balanced. But when you look at the life of many physicians, that's not really a reality.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like you sacrifice your life for others, but at the end of the day, to be effective and a very good caregiver, you gotta take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Almost like the shoemaker with bad shoes.
Yeah. Shoemaker with bad shoes, or like in the airplane, they said put the oxygen mask on yourself first, then you can put it on your child. It's so key. Wow, I thank you for this insightful interview. I learned so much from you. I learned a lot of reality from you in terms of medicine and your experience. I think we need to have more of these dialogues. There's a lot of successful stories out there for our young kids to be able to look at and see models. But when we get a reality check with it at the same time, it can buffet our experience. We can look to expect it. We can expect the pitfalls when we know about it.
Yeah. One thing I would like to add too, so I've had discussions and conversation with like students in college, or maybe in high school wanting to become a doctor. And one thing, I guess we didn't really touch on that, but that's just my advice, and I guess this should be taken with a grain of salt. But if I had to do some things over, I did a bachelor's in biochemistry. I would have probably done like a career in nursing, or at least pursued nursing, or associate, or even a bachelor's. Work as a nurse for a couple of years, get some experience, get more exposure. And I mean, the thing with nursing, it's a beautiful field. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but even within nursing, there's so many options. So,
right.
You could be a bedside nurse, you could be a clinical nurse, you could work for yourself, you could be a nurse anesthetist, you could be a nurse practitioner. So that's one option. At the end of the day, I mean, yes, we want to help people, but we also want a job.
Right.
Right? So that's the first part of the advice. And then if somebody really wants to go to medical school with that nursing background, then they could apply to medical school. So they could save money as a nurse, they could provide for themselves, they could reduce their burden by going through the nursing route. Right. And if things happen, you know what? I don't really like the medical field, or I'm okay being a nurse. You could just stay put and you have a career. Right. Or you could go somewhere else. So I don't know that many people, but there's some people who have been also disgruntled with medicine. Yeah. But couple, $200,000 later, and you're stuck, you don't like what you're doing. Wow. So that's an advice and that's from, if I know where I am now, that's probably what I would have done. I'm not saying I would have been a doctor, I would say I've been, but I think that would have been that's a more practical way of approaching medicine, and maybe even more cost effective. Right. At least you're going through by steps, and it gives you more exposure. And then I believe that somebody who's been a nurse before becoming a doctor will be a better physician, because they've seen healthcare from different angles, from different perspectives. So that's an advice that I would share, and but just make sure that you're taking organic 1, 2, general physics 1, 2. Because so you gotta be a nurse, but you gotta take those background classes at the same time. I'm in total agreement. I think a lot of people just say I want to, but they have no experience in the clinical field, and then they're really smart, right? And so they have a biochemistry degree and they do really, really well, but then hate medicine, but say, hey, I've just paid $300,000 to go to medical school. I'm going to be a doctor, whether I hate it or not, And so there's some disgruntled physicians because they were smart. So you don't become a physician because you're smart.
You become a physician because God has called you to become a physician. Yeah, that's your purpose.
Yeah. And volunteering and making people's brains, just getting different perspectives. Everybody have a different story.
Yeah.
So if we get all the same stories, or it's great,
it's great, right?
The good, the bad, and the ugly at the end of the day.
Right.
The profession comes with all sorts of benefits and disadvantages.
That's right. And see all before you make the decision to do that. Absolutely. Versus just say, this is what everybody thinks I should be, or this is what I think I should be. This is like a prestigious job. See, and that's with life. That's with all careers. Like, look and see. I think one of my friends, I think she's a dentist. She says it's a similar thing. She even if you have to take a year off to go. You say you want to be in medicine. Go and find out the different types of specialties for a good amount of time before you make a decision. That's just some advice that some people say. Some people say, hey, go straight through and do it. Some people say, hey, take a look first. Take a look-see first. As I go on and start to see how medicine is starting to change, I definitely would say that now. Definitely. Medicine is not the same in 2018 as it was in 2000. It's a totally different thing. Yeah.
And there's more changes to come too.
And there's a lot more changes to come. A lot drastic changes to come. Yeah. Wow, what a profound interview. Thanks so much, Daniel. Dr. Daniel St. Ali. I really appreciate it. I am the phenomenal STEMist, and so is this guy right here, biochemist and physician. Good night, guys.
Thank you so much, Maya, for the opportunity.
Yeah.
This interview will help somebody.
I really believe it will. Hey, Cassie, thanks for joining. Thank you guys for joining. Good night.
Good night.
You look good, Doctor. Oh, wait. Oh, see, I know all my friends. This Women's History Month, and I knew all my male friends' names, but now I was about to say Dr. Ola Gandoye, right? So like, what's your huh?
It's still.
Okay, still okay.
I would get in trouble, but I'm still Dr. Ola Gandoye. I have it on any of my degrees or certificates.
That's right. They're still they're still there.
All that that's Ola Gandoye, so that's
who you. That's and you know you're a proud Nigerian sister, so Dr. O is just not enough because both of your names begin with the O. Pronounce that name. Pronounce that name.
Yeah, pronounce it. Pay homage to my dad. And
yeah, baby.
Family sacrifices, so that's why it's that.
Absolutely, I'm in total agreement. I'm in total agreement with that.
Yes.
And it's not hard.
No,
it's not
appropriate. They're 5 syllables. Ola Gandoye.
That's right.
Put down for people and yeah.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Damaris Alogondoye. How was that?
That was perfect.
We're the phenomenal STEMists here, and we're here to discuss her experience as a OB-GYN. I went to Oakwood with Damaris.
Yes, we did.
And she got her bachelor's. Am I right in biology? It was bio, right?
Biology.
And then she minored in chemistry, just like me, but we went into different routes. She went to medical school at Meharry, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience. So before we go into details about what you do now, when did you fall in love with your discipline?
Okay, so that could be twofold. I fell in love with medicine probably early, maybe at the age of 5 years old.
Okay.
Both of my nurses, and in the nursing field, they'll come home, they'll tell me about their day. They both worked at Kingsborough Psychiatric Center. It's a state mental institution in Brooklyn. And they would come home, they'd have all these great stories.
Mm-hmm.
So excited. And that was part of it. And then also, my pediatrician, Dr. Daphne Mailer,
Okay.
on Ocean Avenue. So any Brooklyn people.
Brooklyn, Queens.
So Dr. Mailer, she looked like me, a pediatrician who, African American female. And that also, I was really excited as a little girl going there, not to get shots, but just going there, seeing her.
Right.
Really getting into my teens and saying, wow, this is something that's pretty amazing. Maybe I can do something like this one day. So my early interest is pediatrics.
I see.
And then as I really, it evolved. First pediatrics, just because of that relationship with the pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
I liked children as a child. I really vibed with younger, with the cradle rollers and the kindergarten at church. I would mainly gravitate to the younger children, and so I thought pediatrics
Was it?
As I got into college, and I started being interested in sports. I'm a big sports fan. And then I thought, man, orthopedic surgery, the team physicians. How do I get into the action of sports? Maybe I can be working with the football team or a basketball team. And then I realized that was orthopedic. So I said, okay, maybe I'll do that. But once I got into medical school and I did the rotation for pediatrics, and I realized that to take care of children that are
Sick children. That's the key. Sick children.
Fun, happy kids that are playful with you, that's one thing. But when you have to actually look inside their ears or listen to their heart and do things to them when they're not feeling good, they don't cooperate. Their parents hardly want to help them cooperate. So that was something I didn't enjoy. Also, we live in an age where, especially with parents are advocating for their children. A lot of times they just want antibiotics. They just want a quick pill to figure out my child's coughing, give me a pill. My child's sneezing, I need a pill. They need something for this cold. And it's like, well, it's a virus. We're just going to not treat you with antibiotics right now. And that's something that's in this microwave society, in this I want it my way, have it your way, Burger King kind of mentality. A lot of people are just, they want to be treated right away. And unfortunately, with viruses and pediatric illnesses, sometimes you have to tell people, give it about 48 more hours, 72 more hours, give them some tea or give them some fluids. It just, those old school things, a lot of people don't want to.
Yeah, they're like, I came to a doctor for some medication. I could have went to myself for grandma for some tea. But it's the truth, though, because you don't want to give that child antibiotic resistance. And you try to explain that to parents, and they don't understand. And they have to go to work. They probably say, I can't stay home with them anymore. Anyway, you're getting a lot of fans. You're getting a lot of fans already, Damaris. Tashoy, is Tashoy from Brooklyn? Tashoy, what's your maiden name, Tashoy? Anyway, her married name is Tashoy Robinson.
No, Tashoy, that's my homegirl.
Okay, she was like, hey. And Jada, she's like, hey.
And then also with pediatrics, when children are sick, when the children have cancer, pediatric cancer and certain things like that, it takes a special person. A lot of times, it's not an illness that they brought upon themselves. In adults, we overeat, smoking, we're doing things that we know, drinking too much alcohol and doing things that are harming our bodies. Now we have high blood pressure. Now we have now we have COPD. But with children, this was, so your heart breaks for them.
Right.
And it just takes someone who has that gift. And that I realized that wasn't my gift.
Okay.
So fast forward, when I get on the OBGYN rotation in med school, it's just amazing. They're women, they're my age, they're going through certain health challenges that maybe I'm also going through at that time too. And then just pregnancy. Pregnancy is a time in a woman's life that, she's usually happy. usually go to the doctor and it's always maybe bad news. I just got diagnosed with this or that, diabetes. But when you're pregnant,
you're happy. Right. Yeah.
The delivery room is happy. Everyone's happy. So I just like happy times. And I enjoy that, bringing life into the world. It's just so fun.
Yeah.
So excited.
So you fell in love with it when you did your rotation in medical school. Yeah. So you went through Oakwood, you went through college, just doing well in science, but you had no idea that you were going to be an OBGYN physician.
No idea. It was truly the Lord leading.
Yeah.
He just kept me on the path of medicine. And then when I got to the rotations, it was, also I had a mentor, her name was Dr. Sweet, and just the way she interacted with the patients, when we got together on rounds, it was like an event. All the students, we made sure we knew everything about the patient, and she really demanded a lot out of us. That my first time seeing a Black female in command like that.
Yeah.
Also color in command and really, just the way she was with her patients. She would put them under anesthesia. She would hold their hand as they were going to sleep. When we're about to operate on a patient and they're intubating the patient and they're putting the patient under anesthesia, she held their hand because she always said, "I'm the only face that they know. This patient, they're coming for surgery. They don't know all these nurses. They
right.
recognize, but they know me from the office. So I need to be with them as they're, going off to sleep, to be reassuring, to comfort this patient, and to put them at ease." So when I saw that type of behavior and it's like, this is where I need to be.
This is where you need to be. Awesome. So you had like role modeling. Okay, that's great. What tools did you use to discipline yourself, primarily in college or medical school?
Okay, man, that's a good question. Mainly in medicine, one of the things that was very, very helpful was just keeping in mind the idea of delayed gratification. When you know that you see a lot of people, they're enjoying their lives. They're going on cruises. They're out working, making money. They've graduated from college. They're now on their jobs, doing their thing. But I think just keeping in mind that right now, if my mom would say it may be long, but not forever. You're in the grind, and you just know that one day it's gonna all pay off. So I was never really a person that aspired to have the best things or expensive cars or clothes, things like that. I just really knew that what it took was perseverance.
Yes. Yes.
The race is not to the swift; it's to who he
endures. I'm telling you, it's all about endurance with us.
It is. I get a lot of people, especially young people, they'll be like, "Man, you're a doctor," and then you start counting. Man, that's
4 years medical.
4 years, like, oh man, that's just long. And I'm like, well, okay, you may take 16 years to do this, but if not, you'll be doing something else that you may not be totally happy about. You're still the years are still gonna pass.
That's right.
So doing something that is fulfilling, that you enjoy and rewarding in a way, and not just do something just to make the time pass, just for doing it sake. So yeah, that was, keeping in mind my goals and just keeping the delayed gratification, knowing that, I'll get there when I get there.
Perseverance. And we were in the Sabbath school lesson was talking about instant gratification. This world is so caught up in instant gratification. But if you want to do well in STEM, it's just the reality. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's going to go like that. And that's our mantra. The time is going to pass whether you get a PhD or not,
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you discipline yourself by just keeping your mindset saying, hey, just persevere. Just keep persevering. We're going to make it. Okay.
The thing is, very important to stick around like-minded people. So it's not a diss or a nod to other people, but one of the things that you realize on this journey is that, everyone can't come with you, and it's like like-minded people have to gravitate towards like-minded people. So unfortunately, some friends had to change. some family member you have to have less communication and contact with, because you don't want anything to derail you, detract you from what you have in mind.
That's right.
So it's easy to get distracted. There's social media right now. There wasn't back then. I don't know. There wasn't back then. I don't know, but social media is crazy right now. Facebook and Instagram and all these things. But so those can be distracting. But I mean, back then we had Hotmail, I think.
Yeah, we had I still have my Hotmail account, just to let you know. We had like Black Planet, Hotmail, and we never really dealt with it. It was brand new. I don't know. I don't know how these kids are dealing with. Get off of Facebook, guys. Like, even when it took 2 years before we even got a TV at Oakwood. Like, there was a point in time where we didn't even have television in the dorm. It was such a place where there were no distractions. Exactly. And so getting to a place, that's what David Josie was saying. He was like, he had to go in the corner and just keep away from distractions. Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
At Manhattan, there were study groups.
Mm.
So I had a study group. My homeboy Maurice Richardson, he was in the study group. My friend Chris Ford, I don't know if you know Chris Ford's an Oakwoodite. He was in the study group.
Chris Ford, I remember him. Tall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maurice. But there was a group of us. It was only guys, actually. I was the only girl, but for whatever reason. But you have your study group. I had this friend named Don Rowe. So accountability partners, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You surround yourself with good people that are accountability partners. My homeboy Don Rowe, he lived in my same apartment complex, and so anytime I had car issues or anytime I had problems, even if I had got a bad grade on a test, he was he got really good grades. He was known for that, and I knew when I needed to seek help too.
Mm-hmm.
When you say you get a low grade in a rotation or what have you, when you have to say, okay, I need help I know where to go. We had a student center that allows you that with tutoring.
Yeah.
But just the gentleman I was talking about, he was always very, you surround yourself with encouraging people and people that can help you out when you're in a jam. And you do the same for them when you have the opportunity. But accountability partners. Those
accountability partners. You're the second doctor I've interviewed, and both of you have said that seek out help. It's funny, like when you think medical students and people who get into medical school, you think you gotta already be brilliant, which you are. But I'm saying, as if you just know everything, and if you seek out help, there's something wrong with you. And no, obviously that's not the case. It's so much information that if you need help, seek out help. I like that.
Yeah, there was definitely an adjustment period moving from Oakwood College to Manhattan Medical College. Just the volume, the sheer volume.
The volume, yeah.
And it was night and day as far as you had to be in the gross anatomy lab in your first year of medical school. You did that in the evening. You learned about the cranial nerves and the circle of Willis and all these different things about the brain and just the whole entire body. But you had to learn these things, and then at night, after school was out, you have to go to the gross anatomy lab and dissect the human body.
Yeah.
So there was really not. So you have to prioritize your time, get rid of all the distractions, hang around like-minded people, accountable, and that's what you do. You just have to,
I love it.
And get it done.
Yes. So what were your challenges? What would you say your challenges were in school?
I would say standardized tests. Standardized tests early on was tough. The basic sciences part of medical school, to be very transparent, basic sciences you take in your first and second years. You take your histology, your pathophysiology, your biochemistry, your pharmacology, and then in the third and fourth years, you take the fun stuff that I enjoy, which is the rotations. You go on your family medicine and your internal medicine, your pediatrics, your one-on-one with the patient, the clinical stuff. But the first 2 years was definitely more challenging for me, very challenging for me. And so that's just knowing that at the end of it all, you were getting to patients. That was something to look forward to. But it was difficult for me, those basic science.
So the basic science years and having to take tests on those basic science years, which had a sheer volume that was like quadruple what we covered when we were in college, pretty much.
You have a straw and you're drinking from a fire hydrant. Yeah.
That's a perfect way of saying that. You're a straw and you're trying to drink from it's just flowing at you. Just to let that's what med school is, guys. Just to let you know, just giving you a warning. Okay, so tell me what you do now, and tell me your process after Meharry and what you do now and what your challenges are.
Okay, good. The first year after I finished medical school, I entered the match. I got into OBGYN residency, and it was also at the same school at Meharry Medical College, National General Hospital. So I stayed where I was. I didn't have to move or anything like that. Match day just happened. So once a year in March, the fourth year medical students that are graduating match, they find out where they're going. And it's like a lottery system, so to speak. And there's a lot of suspense. So once you match, you find out where you're going. And so I found out I was going to be staying right where I was in Nashville. I was excited. At that time, my grandmother lived with me. I had a lot of family members close by, so that was helpful.
Okay.
So that's also something that helped me is family. I can't stress that. A close family. So residency. I went to residency, and residency now is when you are working. We call it. They have 80-hour work weeks. That's actually now the law that's saying you can't work more than 80 hours. So we used to imagine
war, slavery.
So that's what we did in residency. We worked a lot and learned how to do procedures, learned how to deliver babies, and do hysterectomies, and do tubal ligations, and ovarian cysts, and all kinds of different things that happen to a woman's body. And so that's what I did in residency. And then once I finished residency, that was 4 years. Residencies can be anywhere from 3 to more. If you talk about plastic surgery or neurosurgery, those are going to be your more competitive, longer, 6-7 year, situations. Mine was 4 years. After that, you can also specialize if you want. You can do a fellowship. And I decided to do a 1-year HIV fellowship.
Interesting.
And in that, I went to right across in the same town at Vanderbilt University. And I did extra training for a year in HIV populations, in men and women I took care of, in everyone, children, men, women. I also went to the St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, and I did pediatric HIV care.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was just an interest that I had. I've always, at some time in my life, want to do some global health. So that's the reason why I did it.
Okay.
Yeah. But then family life situations, got married, had kids, I've done a mission trip, but I haven't really been able to put the HIV, to use. But I still have it. So I decided to use it in the future. And so right now what I do is I work in community health. Okay, I work for FQHC. It's called the Federally Qualified Health Center. And these are your community health centers. And the purpose of them is to provide health care to people that are uninsured or underinsured. And so that's what I do on a daily basis.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you are. I'm so proud of you. So you're a physician who is helping the underserved, basically. Okay.
It's always, part of my dream has been to, when I was growing up in New York City, I always said I wanted to go back to New York and work at a community health center. It turns out I stayed, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it. I get to take care of, a lot of immigrants. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This national population, we have a lot of immigrants from Latin America, Mexico, and Central America. We also have a lot of immigrants, Kurdish, Iraqi, Iranian, Egypt, a lot of people from the Middle East as well. Here that we take care of. We take care of also the East African population is very high here. So we have a lot of Ethiopians and Eritreans and Sudanese.
You're doing your global health initiative right there in Nashville.
That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. I mean, I really do.
But what are your challenges? What are your challenges?
Here right now.
Okay.
Is, not being able to provide patients with what they need. That's the hardest thing. The most challenging thing.
Hey, Elijah. What's going on? Listen, I told you this before, phenomenal STEMist. When I deal with mothers, you're not the first, Damaris. This happened before. This is what happens. Women in science, your children are always around you. Yeah.
Yeah, we can go. All right, I'll be right down. Okay? They say, can women have it all? It's like you can have it all, but I think not at the same time.
Not at the same time.
It's a lot to have it all, but so I was just saying, what was I saying in terms of the challenge?
Not be able to give what they need, patients what they need.
At school, you do residency, you learn how to treat certain medication diagnoses, conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And when you prescribe a medicine, now you have to consider, well, what's on the Walmart or the drug $4 pharmacy list? There was, these certain commercial pharmacies have specific prescriptions that cost a certain amount. So now you have to kind of tailor your approach, even though it may not be the best treatment, even though it may not be the most, efficacious. Now you have to change to something else because the patient can't afford it. So that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Affording medication and getting people what they need.
Especially if that's not the medication that they need. It's not, even if it's the same, base or pharmacological action. It's not what they exactly need, but they can't afford the thing that they need. So, yeah. That can be frustrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other frustrating part is with surgeries. A lot of women, especially in GYN, they may need a surgery. It may just be they may have a cyst or a fibroid tumor or, something that may not be emergent. You go to the emergency room if your appendix is inflamed and you'll get, even if you have no insurance, they're going to do it because they don't want to let you die. But with something else like a woman's health issue, which is heavy bleeding or pain, those aren't seen as acute emergencies. So when a woman goes to the emergency room, they'll just put a little Band-Aid on it, and then they'll send her home and say, well, follow up with your doctor. Well, you come to me, and I'm going to say, well, you need this treatment, but you can't afford it because the hospitals, you have to have insurance in order to get surgery.
So they won't do it in the emergency room, where that's where they're required to do it for whether they have insurance or not, and they won't do it. That's frustrating.
So it's frustrating. So you have to find ways to get around the system or just help them go through financial counseling, do different things. But it's just, you wish you could just help them right away. And sometimes the process can be 2-3 months down the line of suffering.
Well, yeah.
So that's a challenge.
Yeah, that's a huge challenge.
Big.
Okay.
Big.
All right, last question. So what's the favorite part? What's your favorite part of your career?
Favorite part? I would have to say the deliveries. Just, when you meet a person, most people, if you ask them for their top 3 moments in their life, as of a certain age, they'll say it's the birth of their child.
Birth of their child.
Right up there with the top. So, like I said, it's happiness, it's joy, it's, all this anticipation, all the possibilities of this child and what all your dreams and hopes are in this child. So it's just great to be a part of that moment. It's indescribable. Each time it's different. No two childbirths
are the same.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And also one part I enjoy is to see, especially when the men, the dads, tear up. They cry a little bit. They shed a little tear. I'm like, ooh.
That's so touching. Like, see, Hey guys, the dentist that was on was like that she couldn't be a OBGYN, but this is a great, listen, you're changing my mind on this whole thing. Forget about the pain and the suffering that the women, because they forget it, right? They go through it, but then they say, oh my God, they're happy.
Right. And then they're back again in a couple of years. The pain is temporary, and that child and the family you forget about all that.
You forget about all that pain. Wow. Thank you, D. Jada's like, thank God for community center doctors! Exclamation point. They're loving what you're saying.
Yeah, that's why we're here. I enjoy it. I also like it because I get to teach. That's another important thing. I love teaching. And I get students that come to the office. I have nurse practitioner students. When I'm in the hospital, at General Hospital, the community hospital, I get medical students. And then I also have residents, family medicine residents, OBGYN residents. And, we're teaching them how to do different procedures. We're teaching them how to do deliveries. And it's just, I enjoy that part. I'm giving back.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It's like, reach back and how do we keep this thing going? So, and that's through mentoring, giving back, and teaching others,
coming on Facebook Live and telling the world exactly the process it took for you to become this phenomenal physician. Thank you so much, Damaris. I call her Damaris. The proper way she says it is just too hard sometimes, so I just go back to the old way of saying it. But I love her so much. She's always been so cool. And I can totally see that how you're a community health doctor now. I mean, this is like, you're made for that. You're just so down to earth, and definitely, I think that's what we New Yorkers are. We're very down to earth. No pretense.
I love the people. I'm up to.
I lost you, D. Okay, there you go. You're back. Hold on, you're on mute. I can't. Okay, there you are. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just saying there was a phone call coming through. It's my iPad, so
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. She's for the people. She's of the people. I am the phenomenal STEMist, and so is she. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, Damaris.
This venue, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I was always, I'll tell you, Maya was very inspirational person. And when I saw that, that she was doing these things, first I saw this phenomenal STEMist, and she was talking about raising our children and how we, impact what we're teaching them at different ages, how we can teach science to our children. I was excited when I saw that, and I was more intentional about what I'm putting into my children's, purview, what I'm exposing them to.
Yeah.
I decided I just dropping knowledge. So I'm just privileged to be on this, and I admire and commend Maya for what she's doing and trying to push science forward, the culture forward, which is the science culture, which is what we need to be trying to push forward. We appreciate that, Maya.
Definitely. Thank you so much. You guys have a good night.
All right.
I'm gonna let you get back to your boys. They want to go somewhere. Cold ice cream. All right. Thanks, D. Really appreciate it. Good night.